Hello there guys, and welcome to another one of my real life range tests. I know it's been a while since I did one of these, but I've just been terribly busy, and to be honest, I didn't get a lot of very interesting electric cars on my hands to do these tests. But today we are looking at a very important car, especially for BMW, but for the automotive industry as well. This is the new BMW i5, and it's going to be an important car, as I said, for BMW and for the industry. Why for the industry? Because the 5 Series is an important car overall in the industry. It used to dominate its segment, and the i5 is supposed to take over from there. So today we're going to take a closer look at it. We're going to do the range test with it, and I'm going to share some driving impressions with it as well. So let's begin. This is it. This is the BMW i5. It is basically the new 5 Series in electric shape. And it has roughly the same design as the 5 Series, but with some interesting changes. For example, in order to make it more aerodynamic, the front end has been changed slightly. As you can see, the grille, the massive grille up front over here, has been completely blocked out. That's to improve the aerodynamic coefficient. Now, this lower part of the front bumper has some openings. They are active openings, so they will those slats behind it will open and close depending on the situation. So if the battery needs extra cooling, they will open. If not, they will close to improve the aerodynamic coefficient. This is the M60 model, which means it's an M performance version, so a very powerful car, and that comes with certain design elements. For example, this car has the M Sport package as standard, and it has the M badge in the front kidney grille over there. So it looks very aggressive. I like the creases on the front hood. I like the creases on the hood, and I like the overall aggressiveness of the car. I'm not a fan of the angle of the hood. It seems to be going upwards slightly. But that was done because the whole car is a bit taller than usual, because it has to adapt the batteries in the floor. Speaking of which, this M60 model has a 81 kilowatt hour usable battery, which is rather big, but it's not as big as some of its rivals. For example, the EQE 53 AMG. But that car does have a dedicated electric platform underneath it all. This one doesn't. This is built on the CLAR platform. It has just been adapted to house an electric drivetrain. As for the drivetrain, well, I already mentioned the battery. The car has 2 electric motors, and it can rely on a maximum of 601 horsepower and 820 newton meters of torque. It will do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.8 seconds, and it has a top speed of 230 kilometers an hour. More than anyone will ever need, except maybe people living near an unrestricted section of the Autobahn. Let's take a look at the wheels. 20-inch up front. We have red brake calipers over there. They look rather nice. And we have Pirelli P0 tires on this car. They are not fuel efficient tires, they are high performance tires, which has been a dedicated choice from BMW because this car needs grip considering how much power it has. We have M styled side mirrors. These side mirror covers are made of carbon fiber. They look really well, really good, and this is the M badge on the front fender, front left side fender. The door handles have been adapted. They are flush with the door cards in order to make the car more efficient. And we have the number 5 over here on the C pillar, and I love the way the door opens and closes. We also have shades inside, so if you want to keep your privacy, you can use the shades, but we'll talk about that later on. The panoramic roof is also very nice. It has electrochromatic glass, which protects you from the sun, and this is the rear end. Quite shapely, a lot of very sharp edges on this rear end. I'm not really sold on it, but I don't know, it's a matter of taste. Let me know if you guys like the rear end of the new 5 Series. And we have a boot as well. 570 liters of space, smaller than in a conventional model. We have charging cables over here, some additional storage space, but the floor is higher than on an internal combustion engine version because of the battery in the floor. Let's go inside. Let's check out the materials and the space offered. Well, this is a very well spec'd car. So we have these golden Bowers & Wilkins door grill covers. They look really good. This is the door handle. Very interesting how they integrated it into the door profile. And the materials are of good quality. This is leather. This is not leather. This is some sort of imitation, but it does feel nice to the touch. And this is cheap plastic. This is the combination for the interior. So we have a caramel leather with gray details on the outside. Let's have a seat. The access is really easy to get in. And this is how I fit. So I am 6 feet tall, 250 pounds, and I fit in the back nicely. This seat has been adjusted in my comfortable driving position. It's even further back because this car has the comfort access function. So basically when you get in or out, the driver's seat will adjust to ease this transition. We have a USB charging port over here. Let's see. Well, I just got out of a BMW X6 and the headroom is similar. I'm guessing if you don't have this glass roof, you would have probably a bit more space in terms of headroom, but it's okay. I could travel here for longer trips easily. And over here we have, even though it's not turned on right now, we have dual climate zone control. It's a screen that allows you to set the temperature for each side. And these are USB-C charging ports. And this is the front half of the car. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? Let's hop in. Before we do, let's take a look at the materials used on the door cards. So we have leather, and this is a trim that includes the door handle, of course. We have a light bar over here, just like we saw on the 7 Series, and we have the Bowers & Wilkins tweeter over here. So it does feel and look really nice. In terms of storage space, it's not huge. This is a 1 liter bottle. It does fit, but not much else. So it's okay in that regard. These are the front seats. They look pretty comfortable. Didn't get to drive in this car too much. This is my first contact with it, but they do look pretty comfortable. I'm gonna do an update on that. And let's get in. So everything looks really nice, feels really nice to the touch. And the infotainment screen and the instrument cluster have been better integrated in the overall design of the car, unlike on other cars that started off with iDrive 7 and ended up with iDrive 8 on board. So the iDrive changed. This is the newest version. So you have these shortcuts over here. This is the home page, and you don't have the widgets anymore, right? So this is like the default home page. You do have a shortcut over here for the energy consumption figures, trip computer, and so on. So every notification you need to know about is over here. So if you want to enter different applications, you press on this button. So you arrive at this menu. It seems very familiar. It's the same as the one found on the previous generation, iDrive 8. This is the 8.5 system. And now we have Air Console games. Basically, you can use your phone as a controller and play different games on the screen. Not really a fan of this feature either. So you can sort the apps using shortcuts over here. So you can have all the apps shown, apps related to the infotainment part of things, apps related to the car, and recently used apps. This is going to be the most used one. You have a shortcut over here for the climate, which looks different. Set it on auto and everything is set up like this. Looks really nice. Individual settings, if you want to, set different temperatures and everything for each passenger in the car. But this looks really good, and it has been simplified compared to the previous generation. Also, if you press on these buttons, you can activate the heating in your seat and the ventilation, so on. It's a lot more streamlined compared to the previous generation. Okay, if you press on this one, you arrive at the navigation content, and this is for the multimedia settings. Okay, so, and this is for the phone. Really easy to use and a lot better looking in my book. Now we have this light bar in this car. As you can see, you have certain shortcuts over here for various things like the seat arrangements and memory for the seats, lock and unlock and so on. This is the light cluster now, and I like this detail in this wood trim over here. Really nice, really nicely done. And what about the center console? Well, crystal stuff over here. It looks exactly like on the 7 Series, right? So you have shortcuts over here. You have this crystal rotary knob that you can use. You can write on it. This is the volume button and so on. You can select my modes from over here. So we have personal, sport, efficient, expressive, relaxing, digital art. Let's use efficient. When you go into efficient mode, the colors change inside the car and certain settings change as well. The car will use less power. That's the main idea. 2 wireless chargers over here, 2 cup holders, and a steering wheel with the buttons in the same fashion as on the regular 7 Series. That's the sound the car makes whenever you turn it on, and that's the instrument cluster. That looks exactly the same as on any other BMW launched in the last, I don't know, 3 years. Now, let's take a look at the charging situation. Okay, so right now we have 99% of the battery charged and an estimated range of 357 kilometers, which is less than the 425 the WLTP charging test cycle showed that this car should return. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reset the individual values and I'm going to take this car for a drive. As usual, I will start with the B-road section of this test. Then we're going to hop on the highway, and then we're going to do the remainder of the test inside the city limits. So let's see what kind of results we can get. Okay, so we just finished the B road section of our real life range test. Let's take a look at the result. So we drove for 42 minutes for a total of 43.3 kilometers, and the car shows an energy consumption of 18.8 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered. Now I have some mentions to make. We still have 80% of the battery charge left, and the exterior temperature is 24.5 degrees Celsius, which is ideal for such range test. The car is showing a remaining of 333 kilometers of range possible. If you do some math, considering the battery is 81 kilowatt hours usable, considering the battery has a usable capacity of 81 kilowatt hours, this should give the car a range of about 430 kilometers on this kind of roads. Not a bad range, it's pretty close to the official number, but things are only going to get worse from here on out. Now we're going to hop on the highway and see what kind of numbers we get over there. finished the highway section of our real life range test. Let's take a look at the numbers. So we covered nearly 60 kilometers in roughly less than half an hour, and the average energy consumption, as pointed out by this trip computer, is 23.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered. We still have 70% of the battery charge left and an estimated range of 254 kilometers. With this kind of energy consumption, considering the car has a battery with a usable capacity of 81 kilowatt hours, that should give you a range of about 350 kilometers on the highway. So pretty good. The temperature was ideal, and I did keep the climate control off, but I'd say these are decent numbers. Now the inner city test will begin. That's going to take a long time. It's going to take me about 8 hours to complete. I'm going to take breaks, I'm going to take my time, but I am going to do 100 kilometers around town to see what kind of energy consumption figures we get. Stay tuned for the conclusion. Okay guys, so we just finished the inner city test, real life range test, with the BMW i5 M60, and these are the results. So overall, the energy consumption figure is 27.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered, and it took me just almost 3 hours to complete this test. So the average speed is quite high, and I'm going to explain why. And it has a lot to do with this car's specs, because it's so fun to drive that I use it in sport mode a lot of the time around town. So this energy consumption figure of 27.7 should be taken with a huge grain of salt, because I did drive it in a sporty fashion like most of the time. So it's not necessarily like the most efficient figure you could get. I'm guessing you could go under 25 easily, but since this is an M60 model, I'm guessing most owners will be driving it in a sporty fashion, because that's why they pay so much money for it. So, you know, take it as you will. That's what I got. That means you could get a range of almost 300 kilometers around town, driving like I did for the past 24 hours. Now let's set in motion and talk about the rest of the things I've learned about the BMW i5 while I was testing it. So let's talk about the technical side of things and what I discovered during my time with the car. As I already told you, we have an 81 kilowatt hour battery under the floor, but I didn't tell you that you can recharge it at 205 kilowatts, or a charger that's capable of delivering up to 205 kilowatts. But that's not the whole story. Just like it happens with all electric cars, the peak charging power is just part of the story, because what you will be more interested in is just how the charging curves look like. Because if you can maintain that 205 kilowatt power for like 5 minutes at most, that's not going to help you out too much. Now, I did recharge the car using a 150 kilowatt charger, because that was the most powerful I had around my location, and the car did reach 150 kilowatts in no time. I connected it to the charger at around 40% and unhooked it at about 86%, and it took me about, I don't know, 10-12 minutes to do that. So the charging curve seems to be quite good overall. Now, the energy consumption is a bit high, I will give you that, but I didn't cut any corners. I drove this car like a madman, so I think it's pretty much okay. And more than that, this is the M60 model. It's not exactly put together to be an efficient car. Its main goal is to deliver a certain level of performance. That's its main purpose in life, not to be efficient. If you want to have a more efficient car with a longer range, you should probably look at the i5 eDrive 40, not at the i5 M60. That's my point of view, at least. So other than that, I also noticed that this car is supremely comfortable. It soaks up the bumps so very nice. It has no issues whatsoever in keeping you incredibly comfy inside, and that's mostly because they did great work on the suspension side of things. Now, keep in mind, this car is built on the Clark platform, so it's basically the same platform used by the G30 generation, and that could be a first for BMW. It has been very rare to see two generations using the same platform. It happened before, but not that often. This is definitely the exception here. But they did work on the suspension. We have a double wishbone setup up front, a multi-link setup at the back with 5 control arms, and a lot more innovation. So the M60 gets adaptive dampers as standard, but they are passive adaptive dampers, if you will. So basically, they will change their stiffness depending on the frequency of the bumps in the road. Then there's the optional M Professional suspension. You have the possibility of buying. This car has it, and that means it has air suspension on the rear axle, and that makes this car, we have it on this car, and it made it incredibly comfortable to drive around town. Furthermore, we have rear axle steering. The rear wheels do not turn that much, only 2.5 degrees, but that does help out around town and when driving in a sportier fashion. You can actually feel the fact that they turn slightly whenever driving in a sportier fashion, or maybe parking the car and so on, because the 5 Series did grow in terms of size. It's now almost 10 centimeters longer than the old generation, even though the wheelbase didn't grow by that much. It's just 2 centimeters extra compared to the previous generation. What this car can do, though, is drive both in a very calm and comfortable fashion. It's very refined, very quiet inside, but it can also drive like a speed demon whenever you take it on a couple of B roads and actually put it to the test. And a big chunk of the credit goes to a new electronically controlled anti-roll system. It has anti-roll bars that are controlled by electric swivel motors, working on a 48-volt architecture. And they do keep these cars' weight in check brilliantly. You do feel the weight when you push it really hard. You do feel the weight in the corners, but you feel it down low, and you basically feel just like, I don't know, as if you're on top of a skateboard and you're pushing, that skateboard beneath you is pushing towards the outside of a corner. That's just how it feels when you drive this car in a sportier fashion, and the weight starts to show its ugly face. Also, you will hear the tires protesting a lot from the outside, but even so, it drives wonderfully, and you have to be very careful because you will reach eye-watering speeds in no time. For example, the 0 to 100 kilometers an hour sprint is done in just 3.8 seconds, and the car can reach a top speed of 230 kilometers an hour, which is more than most people need, except those living next to unrestricted autobahns. So yeah, it's a very fast car, and you will reach triple-digit speeds in no time, and that includes miles per hour. So you will do 160 kilometers an hour in no time. That said, what is there left to mention? The driving character of the car will also change quite drastically depending on the driving mode you're using. So we have a button over here that allows you to go through different driving modes. For example, personal mode will change the lighting for the interior crystals. The materials used inside, by the way, are of very good quality. I like the fit and finish, very nicely done. And I like the fact that these illuminated crystals can do a number of things, from going red whenever you turn on the hazard lights, to warning you when you open the door, for example, if you have incoming traffic, and so on and so forth. Now, changing down to sport mode, it will activate a different soundtrack. All of the sounds you hear are done by Hans Zimmer, of course. This is the sound the car makes in sport mode whenever you accelerate. Let's go into efficient. We were in efficient mode. The car makes absolutely no sound in that mode. And in expressive mode, you have this sound. Nice, isn't it? Let's see. Relax mode will close the blinds and change the sound again, and digital art does the same. So yeah, you have plenty of driving modes you can choose from. I'm gonna stay with expressive over here. And I like the way these crystals light up. I like the materials used for the seats. We have merino leather over here in 2 color combinations. They look great, but by the way, in standard configurations, the 5 Series and the i5 can be had with a vegan interior. So it's called Veganza, and it's a synthetic leather. So you can have the cars with that material as well if you want cruelty-free upholstery. But I love the way this feels and looks. The seats are incredibly comfortable. I've been driving this car for a couple of days now, and I have no issues whatsoever with my otherwise rather sensitive back. And you have a number of ways you can configure them, adjust the seats, the backrests, and so on. You can even get massaging seats and so on. And of course, we still have gesture control on board of this car. We also have a new navigation system that can actually calculate where to stop on your way on a longer trip, and how much to recharge your car in order to get to your destination as fast as possible, and a number of other tricks as well, including the possibility of overtaking whenever you're on a highway by just using your eyes. So if you're on the highway, you have the active cruise control system turned on, just like I am right now, but I'm not on a highway, and it's not legal in Romania to use this kind of system, so it's not available yet. But in certain countries it is. So basically all you have to do is look in a mirror, make sure it's safe, and it will overtake for you or change lane. And that's just brilliant. Look into the left mirror, the car will overtake. Look into the right mirror, it will change lane, so on. That's pretty impressive, to be honest. And it's all done using infrared cameras stuck in here in the instrument cluster that watch your face closely. It doesn't matter if you're wearing sunglasses or not, and it does that rather nicely for you. So overall, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with the BMW i5 M60. Now, this is, of course, an expensive car. You do have 600 horsepower at your disposal. It's a faster car than the BMW X5M competition, for example, I tested recently. So it's not going to be cheap. So the price for this car, configured just as you see it, is 127,000 euros. Pricing for it starts at roughly 99,000 euros. But of course, you have different choices as well. You can have a internal combustion version. The 520i and the 520d are available right now for purchase. Pricing starts at 59,000 euros for the 520i. The 520d is a bit more expensive, over 60,000 euros. And you have the BMW i5 eDrive 40, which has a 340 horsepower electric motor on the rear axle alone, and that starts at roughly 70,000 euros, so a lot cheaper. So if you're looking for a more efficient car and longer range, that should be your pick, because the charging and the battery will be the same. So the rivals for this car are the Mercedes-Benz E-Class, the new E-Class, the Mercedes-Benz EQE, which has the advantage of using a dedicated electric platform, and the Audi A6 that's, well, getting left behind a bit right now. It should be getting a new model anytime these days. It's in the works, it's gonna get launched pretty soon. Let me know which one you would prefer, which one you would buy. If you think this car is expensive, I forgot I was in expressive mode. But I'm telling you, this is a very fun car to drive, and keeping your foot off the accelerator is a true challenge. Until next time, don't forget to like, share, and of course subscribe, and don't forget to feed your passions. Ciao.